Hey, what is up guys? Merganman4 here, and today I'm going to be talking about another episode of Doctor Who Flux. The first proper episode to focus on the Weeping Angels in nearly a decade, and also the return of writer Maxine Alderton, who previously wrote my favorite 13th Doctor episode, The Haunting of Villa Diodati. And so, with expectations high, how does Village of the Angels hold up? So as I said, Village of the Angels has a lot to live up to, and honestly, I think on the whole it did a pretty good job. I don't think it's quite as good as Maxine Alderton's last outing, and it's kind of in the middle of the pack of the, I guess 4 Weeping Angel stories, but that doesn't really mean much because they've all been really, really good. So the fact that it's even being compared to those other stories, that there's even been discussion of where in the Weeping Angel stories does it go, I think that speaks volumes about just how good this episode is. And I think you get a good sense of that right off the bat with the cold open, which I honestly think is one of the most atmospheric that we've probably had. It does a really good job of setting the tone right off the bat. It's got great cinematography. Actually, all throughout this episode, there's a lot of great cinematography. And the psychic analysis thing is a great hook to get you interested in what's going on. As is the segue into the opening titles where Claire echoes the Doctor's final words from the last episode. The angel has the TARDIS. And yeah, just as I said last week, it makes for a really striking image to have a weeping angel at the controls of the TARDIS console. The threat is disposed of pretty quickly. The Doctor kind of does some sort of sci-fi nonsense thing, but that's fine because, well, this cliffhanger wasn't really about the threat, it was more about the mystery. What is the Weeping Angel doing there? Where is it taking the TARDIS? And we get the answer to that second question pretty quickly. Pretty much as soon as the Doctor ejects the Weeping Angel from the TARDIS, it's landed and it's arrived in a 1960s village, same place that we saw Claire and Professor Jericho in the cold open. And I've got to say, this setting is so well suited to the Angels. It provides the perfect creepy ambiance to it. It kind of echoes back to the vibes of Blink in a more rural setting, not an exotic one like in Time of Angels or, you know, the big city in Angels Take Manhattan. So it's nice to kind of have that more smaller scale, I guess. And of course, as we saw in the cold open, we've been reintroduced to Claire, who we briefly saw in the Halloween Apocalypse. Back then, it kind of seemed like something had happened to her in, like, out of order, but it's not really an out of sequence thing. This does occur after Halloween Apocalypse to her, but it turns out that she had been seeing premonitions, and she saw premonitions of the angels and the Doctor and the TARDIS, and that's how she recognized them. That's how she knew not to blink when the angels are around. But ultimately, of course, she did end up getting sent back by them to the 1960s, and she's been here for a couple of years now. But essentially, the premonitions were caused by an angel that had kind of taken root in her mind. And this is kind of a continuation of something we saw in the Time of Angels. And actually, that's kind of what this episode really does. It doesn't really add any new abilities to the Weeping Angels, but it takes a lot of the old ones and kind of expands on them more. Like, we see dust coming out of Claire's eye or her hands being made of stone, but while in Time of Angels that was actually an illusion, here it's been made real. But yeah, we learned fairly early on that I guess Claire's becoming an angel. We have this awesome scene where she looks at herself in the mirror and then suddenly she has the angel wings. And basically the other angels that are invading this village and the one that had attacked her in the present day have come after the angel that's actually living inside of her. And that's the kind of new take on the Weeping Angels that I was interested to see. Not necessarily adding in, oh, the Weeping Angels can do this now, but it gives a different kind of motivation to them. When you have a rogue Weeping Angel trying to escape from the rest of them, it puts them in a whole different context. I also want to talk about Professor Jericho as well, who is a really fun character. Kevin McNally has clearly had a lot of fun in this role, and he is great. I'm very glad we're going to be seeing more of him in the coming episodes, and yeah, quite a comeback after the twin dilemma. But yeah, I really liked the character of Professor Jericho, and I guess I don't really have that much else to say about him, but That's all right. He joins another long line of awesome guest characters from this season. It's very exciting for me to say that because a lot of the other guest characters from the Chibnall era haven't made nearly as much of an impression as a lot of these ones have. But while the Doctor has reacquainted with Claire and met Professor Jericho, Claire and Dan have gone out searching for a little girl who's been missing, Peggy, and they end up encountering an angel and both get sent back to 1901, where they end up meeting with Peggy, but also learn that the edge of the village is kind of closing in. There's a big space void thingy that is gradually coming in towards the center of the village. And at first I thought it would be something to do with the Flux, but we later learned that it was actually part of the Angels' plan. Their plan of, what is it, quantum entanglement? Is that what it was called? Whatever its name was, it was part of their trap, and I guess it was kind of like a last resort. If they couldn't get Claire's angel in 1967, then they would send her back to 1901, where she'd have no means of escape. Back in 1967, Jericho's house has been completely surrounded by angels, and we get to see a bit more of this expansion upon previous abilities, like the image of an angel becomes itself an angel. That plays a pretty significant role here, with angels coming out of pictures and coming out of the TV screen. And I also particularly loved the bit where they started using the speakers in the TV to speak with Jericho's voice and kind of taunt him. That's another thing this builds upon, the cruelness of the angels. They like to watch people suffer. And I just really love that scene where they tried to get into Jericho's mind and kind of break his will. It's around here that the Doctor decides that she's going to have to go inside Claire's mind to find out exactly what's going on with this angel within her. And in this mindscape, we get another striking visual of this mirrored beach area. The color grading is great here too. Like I said, the visuals in this episode are amazing. And it's here we learn that this angel is a rogue angel that was running away. It's not going to be rescued, it's going to be captured. But more importantly, we learned that these angels worked for the Division. And so this episode has really started to push the Division as a big bad of the season as well. Because of course, when it was first introduced in the Timeless Children, it seemed like it was just a Time Lord organization. And we learned that Carvanista was a Division agent in the Halloween Apocalypse, and we're like, oh, I guess it has non-Time Lords as well. Here we learn that the Division is way, way bigger than we previously thought. That they have agents of every species, and that they use everyone and everything, and that they're everywhere. And I'm really curious where this is going, because I had been under the impression that the Division was something from the far past, that it hadn't been a thing since the Doctor's life as we knew it began. But apparently, it's still around, still lurking in the shadows, and what is it they want? What are they doing? And I particularly love that they kind of sell their power and influence to us by having them be in control of a group of weeping angels who you would not think could be controlled. And of course, the other vital thing here is that apparently this particular angel has knowledge about the Doctor's time in the Division. So, of course, now she's desperate to find out what this angel knows. But she can't get it to leave Claire, and they end up getting knocked out of the mind thingy by Jericho as the angels have started to approach and get closer, and they end up escaping through this tunnel system. And I'll admit, because we've been getting these brief weird appearances from Joseph Williamson throughout each episode, since there were tunnels, I thought we'd see Williamson here. No dice, no Williamson in this episode. Where's my weekly Williamson? But it looks like he's going to have a bigger role in next episode, so I guess that kind of makes up for it. And maybe we'll finally get some answers there. But I kind of started looking forward to the craziness and mind-boggling what is he doing here every week. So I was a little underwhelmed not to see him there, because, you know, I was expecting him. I am exaggerating, though. I don't really care that much. But what we get in these tunnels is some really cool stuff anyway. There's another striking visual of the angels kind of starting to come out of the stone walls. You have all their hands reaching through. And meanwhile, you've got the angels coming from the other side, so it seems like an almost impossible to escape from situation. But Claire's able to get out, and then when Jericho tries to, he doesn't make it. The angels get him. He gets zapped back to 1901 with Yaz, Dan, and the little girl. And then the doctor tries to escape. And one of my favorite moments in any Weeping Angel story happens here, where the episode completely subverts your expectations when it comes to blinking. Because, of course, that's their whole thing. If there's a Weeping Angel, don't look away. Don't blink. And the doctor does just that because it's her only option to escape. But the Weeping Angel doesn't attack her. And it's such a little thing, but it has such a strong impact because, you know, these are such iconic villains and that's their biggest gimmick. So it's just being hit with a sledgehammer of realization when that happens because, of course, you're wondering, well, why isn't the angel going after the doctor? Of course, the reason is it doesn't need to. They already have her. She leaves the tunnel and completely surrounded by the angels. And there's Claire with her angel, and she reveals that her rogue angel has made a deal with the other angels, that the angels will take the doctor instead. Because the only thing that the division wants more than that angel is the doctor. And this is when we get one of the most visually striking and shocking cliffhangers in Doctor Who's history. As she is recalled to the division, we see the doctor turned into a weeping angel herself. And the imagery of that is just incredible. And the whole situation, it just feels so hopeless, so dire. The doctor's companions are stranded in 1901, and she is stuck as a stone statue going back to this secret, presumably evil organization, and she's trapped. Completely and utterly trapped. It is a crazy cliffhanger, and yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen next week, but this is going to be a hard cliffhanger to top. It's emphasized even more so by when we go into the theme music and the credits, they've removed the bass line from the theme music. So it's got this kind of more melancholy feel, almost as if it's missing its foundation, you know, because the doctor's gone. And there's also another weird thing, too, in that we suddenly get a mid-credits scene, which has only ever happened one time before. The mid-credits scene teasing Last Christmas at the end of Death in Heaven. But this one's also weird because it's not just like a few seconds long, it's a whole proper scene. And it continues off of some of the scenes from earlier in the episode, which I'm going to talk about now because I couldn't really find a place to talk about them earlier. Continuing Belle and Vinder's storyline from the last episode. So throughout Village of the Angels, we get a couple of scenes where Belle is, of course, continuing her search for Vinder, and she ends up on this planet where we find out Azure is using Passenger to kidnap a whole bunch of people. And now I'm really curious, like, why are they taking all these random people? I guess maybe just to have as hostages like the last time, like we saw in Once Upon Time? I don't know, but because they've also got Diane trapped in a passenger as well. So hopefully we'll get answers about that next week. But it makes up a pretty small part of the story, and yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. And the mid-credit scene is basically just Vinder arriving on the same planet and talking to someone who had seen Belle, and then Belle had left like a hologram recording thingy, but it runs out before she can tell him where she is. So it's kind of a weird mid-credit scene because it doesn't really feel like it belongs there. I mean, I didn't really mind it, but I'm not really sure why it couldn't have been earlier in the episode. But with the theme being all weird and with that mid-credit scene, it almost feels like the structure of the show is falling apart as well as the structure of the universe. And on like the Doctor Who social media stuff, the logo on the profile pictures has been falling apart as well. And in the trailers for Flux, the little rainbow strands have been getting more and more crazy. So I wonder if that's kind of tying into that. And just kind of representing the complete and utter damage that the Flux has caused, that it's now even seeping into the credits sequence. I'll be really curious to see if that's going to be continued in next week's episode. But yeah, as usual, of course, after the credits, we get our next time trailer for next week's episode, Survivors of the Flux. And normally, I don't really talk about the next time trailer, but this one I have to, because out of nowhere, Kate Stewart appears! Kate Stewart of Unit! And I don't know, they kept that really under wraps, and I can't believe that they would just so casually put it in a next time trailer and reveal it like that. Like, the only thing I can think of is that they're trying to cover up an even bigger shock of some sort, because, I mean, I know Kate Stewart returning isn't like the biggest thing in the world, but it's still a pretty substantial return. She hasn't been in the show for 6 years now, and of course Unit has been absent from the Chibnall era. But I always said there'd be funding and resolution was going to lead to something. I never for 1 second thought the Chibnall had actually gotten rid of them, and I think the people thinking that really blew it out of proportion. It was just an excuse to leave him out of that episode. But yeah, I'm really excited to see Unit and Kate Stewart back and see what Chibnall does with them, especially since he was the one who wrote Kate Stewart's introductory story. But yeah, other than that, I really don't know what to expect from next week's episode. There's no doubt that we're going back to the more arc-heavy stuff next week. But kind of the vibes I get, it feels like if this were a traditional season, it would be part one of a two-part finale. So hopefully we'll start getting answers next week instead of continuing to build on the mysteries and leaving it all for the final episode to answer. But yeah, I'm excited for that. Anyway, I had to talk about that bit of the next time trailer. I just had to. But yeah, Village of the Angels. Getting back on topic there. Like I said, I really enjoyed the episode. I thought it lived up to expectations quite well. And I think it fits right in with all the other Angel stories. Like I said, I don't think it's as good as Blink or Time of Angels. And I also don't think it's as good as Maxine Alderton's last outing. But still really strong. It's close. It's not that far behind either of them. So I'm going to be giving Village of the Angels an 8.5 out of 10. Because it's got a great atmosphere to it. It does some really interesting stuff with the Angels, expanding upon what they've been used for previously. And I'm very, very, very interested to see where the story goes next. And hopefully next week we'll get some answers. But yeah, that was my thoughts on Chapter 4 of Flux. Please leave your thoughts on Village of the Angels down in the comments below. And with that, I'll see you guys next week for Survivors of the Flux.